Hey guys, this is Mr. Win. I'm going to do a quick video on how to solve equations by factoring and what do you do when there's no value in front. Alright? So when factoring, factors are things that kind of affect the original problem. So if you're splitting it into factors, you're splitting it to two parts that, you're breaking it down into different parts to where they affect the original equation. They're still essentially the same. In this case, this is actually a quadratic because if I multiply these two, you'll end up having an x squared, right? And we know quadratics always have x squares, all right? And if I do get it into our factored form where you'll usually see them as two different parentheses, all you have to do to actually solve is set them equal to 0. So I'll split that up as x plus 1 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. From there, it's simply just solving for x. So I got to subtract 1 to both sides. So x equals a negative 1. Over here as well, subtract 2. X equals negative 2. Those are your two answers. Those are your two x-intercepts. So if you had a graph, right, your curve will be at negative 1, negative 2, something along the lines of like this. Okay, quadratic. Those are your two zeros. Those are your two x-intercepts. All right, let's look at what happens. How do we get it into that factored form? How do we get it into those two parentheses, all right? So in this case, what you want to do is, remember, you always have an A, a B, and a C, right? Those are just the numbers in front. They're in order, right? What I like to do is something called this little x method. So I'm drawing x, and what you want to do when you're drawing these x's is you want to multiply the a and the c. In this case, I'm going to color them both green so we know. You want to multiply that, but if there's nothing in front, that's just the 1, right? So really, we're not multiplying anything at all when there's no number in front. We're just taking this last value c and putting it on top. So when we're doing other problems in this video, I'm just going to refer to this as placing the last number c at the top, all right? So I'm going to place 6 here. 5 is going to go on the bottom. And the way this x works is that you're going to find two numbers. I'm going to place the numbers here and here where they will multiply up to 6, but also add up to 5, all right? And if you think there's really only one combination, 1 and 5, because not 1 and 5, excuse me, 2 and 3, because 2 times 3 is 6, all right? 2 times 3 is 6, all right? 2 plus 3 equals 5, all right? In that case, now our factors will be, in parentheses, x to positive 2 and x positive 3. Set that all equal to 0. From here, you've got two simple problems to solve. X plus 2 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. You're just going to do the inverse operations to cancel. And you're left with x equals negative 2. X equals negative 3. All right, next example. What if I had a 2 at the end? Notice how this is not a 0. Well, simple solution, make it a 0. Cancel that 2. It could have been a 2x, could have been a 2x squared. Whatever it is over there on the right side of the equal sign, it should be 0. So if I perform the opposite, I'm going to subtract 2 from this side. I've got to subtract 2 from the number itself as well. So here, you're going to be left with x squared minus 7x. 12 minus 2 is 10. 2 minus 2 is now 0. And then let's go ahead and do our little x and start over, right? Let's start actually factoring. So in this case, there is no a number, right? Nothing is here, so I'm just going to take the 10. All right, that's going to be our multiply. And I'm going to take the b number, the negative 7, put that on the bottom, and we're going to find things that add up to it. Now, this is a little different because notice how it is a negative 7. In that case, we know one of our numbers should be negative. So if I think, what two things multiply to give me 10? Well, there's 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Well, wait, 2 and 5 sounds pretty good, right? Because 2 plus 5 is 7, but it has to be negative 7. So in this case, to keep that multiplication positive, but get a negative in addition, we'll want to make them both negative. Because if you check, negative 2 times negative 5 would give us 10. Negative 2 plus negative 5 would give us negative 7. All right? So again, from here, it's the simple. Just set up our factors and put it equal to 0. Split them up and solve. So in this case, they are negative. So instead of subtracting, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. That gives us x equals 2. And then over here, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. That gives us x equals 5. Excuse me. All right. Last example I'm going to skip over is to example 5. Now, what if you have a number in front? Well, this is one of those situations where I can get rid of that number. Because if you check, this 3 is also a factor of negative 6 and negative 45. There's a greatest common factor, okay? I'm going to refer to that as GCF. So the very first thing you should always do is find your greatest common factor and take it out of the problem, all right? So in this case, we can take out a 3. 3 is our greatest common factor. We're going to go ahead and divide everything by 3. Everything by 3. And reduce the problem down to where there is no number in front of the x. So in this case, all right, so if I do divide those by 3, that would leave me with x squared. Let's keep this consistent. X squared, because 3 divided by 3 is just 1, minus 2, because 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then negative 45 divided by 3 would give you 15. That's a problem where there's no x in front, but don't forget, we did take out a 3. A 3 does not need to go in the front, but we'll just put it at the end of the problem. All right, so focus on just this problem, and let's factor it, all right? So let's draw our x, and let's go ahead and put our c value there. All right, negative 15. It's nice because there's no a, but in other cases we'll have to multiply those, but for now let's just put the c there. The b value is going to go in the middle, or sorry, the bottom. It is the middle number, it goes on the bottom. That's what we're going to add up to. Let's figure out the numbers, all right? Multiples of 15, that's what you want to focus on. Don't try to find numbers to add up to negative 2. You know, it takes a while. Start with multiplying. So our multiples of 15 are 1 and 15. If I add those, it's not going to be 2. How about 2 and, no, 2 doesn't work. Let's try 3 and 5. 3 and 5 sounds pretty good. They're about 2 apart. But again, it is a negative 15, so one of them have to be a negative. Since the negative, since our b is negative 2, we know the bigger number has to be negative. So when I add them, 3 plus negative 5 equals negative 2. Our factors, x plus 3, x minus 5. Now don't forget the 3 in the front, but really we're not going to do anything about the 3 because if I change this into 0, all right, if I equal it to 0, 3 times 0 would still be 0. It doesn't matter. If I change this part to 0, right, eventually anything else you multiply by that 0 will also be 0. So in this case, essentially that 3 didn't even matter because if I were to solve this, I would just split the two parentheses or two factors equal to 0. All right? But just so you know, this is the correct factored form. So if I ever ask you for factored form, I do need that 3 in the front. All right? But here, let's just solve this out. So I would subtract 3 to both sides. That gives me x equals negative 3. And over here, if I were to add 5 to both sides, that would give me x equals 5. All right, that's the basics of factoring. The next assignment will be over grouping. We'll show you what to do in case I do have a number in front and I can't divide evenly. And we'll go from there. All right, thank you. That's it.